everyone, welcome to Tune In. It's Devin, and today I've opted to wear this very festive sweater, which might clash tonally with the album I'm going to be talking about, because today I'm going to be reviewing a very dark album, and an album I am very passionate about, the new Lingua Ignota album, Caligula. Caligula is the third album from American singer-songwriter Kristen Hayter, aka Lingua Ignota. I'm sorry if I mispronounce that every time I say it in the video. Kristen Hayter is a classically trained multi-instrumentalist and vocalist who, back in 2017, self-released 2 albums of terrifying, hellish, and liturgical industrial music titled Let the Evil of His Own Lips Cover Him and All Bitches Die. After the release of these records, Kristen was signed to Profound Lore Records. The label reissued All Bitches Die, and earlier this year we received Kristen's third album and Profound Lore debut, titled Caligula. Stylistically, the music of Lingua Ignota can fit quite comfortably under many different genre labels. I've seen her music described as being metal or post-metal, having elements of liturgical songwriting. I think the 2 most accurate labels for her music would have to be death industrial and neoclassical darkwave. It's a mouthful. Neoclassical darkwave is a genre that I am not going to pretend to have much knowledge of outside of that amazing Anna von Hauswolf album that came out last year, as well as some other releases and artists here and there on her own life. I wouldn't really classify this album as being metal, as there are very few, electric guitars on Caligula, but the screams, these harsh screams and walls of noise presented on this album definitely make it feel at least metal adjacent. Anyway, I digress. Genre labels are arbitrary, blah blah blah. Let's talk about the music. Caligula is 11 tracks and comfortably over an hour in length. Now that she has a label backing her music, the presentation of Caligula is so much grander than the already massive All Bitches Die. There are more session musicians playing on this album, more instrumentation overall. The grander presentation is immediately noticeable from the intro track, Faithful Servant and Friend of Christ. The atmosphere is dark and palpable, the strings are rich and widescreen, the vocals are dynamic and have a great sense of melody, the biblical motifs are already beginning to develop. Really all the pieces are there on this perfectly executed intro. We start to really get into the meat of the album on track 2. Do You Doubt Me, Traitor? But first, now is the point in the review where I would actually like to issue a trigger warning, as Caligula is an album that deals heavily with traumatic themes such as domestic abuse, suicide, and violence, and in order to adequately review this album, I will be diving into these lyrics. Kristen herself has been very outspoken as a survivor of domestic abuse, and she explores these themes and ideas throughout her music. However, nowhere are these themes more present than on Caligula. Given just how tortured yet decadent the music presented on Caligula is, Kristen's classification of her music as survivor anthems makes sense. Do You Doubt Me, Traitor is the longest song on Caligula. It is nearly 10 minutes in length, and it is easily the most multifaceted and complex song here. It begins with some very somber, slow piano, and Kristen painting a series of poetic, spiteful images in chilling monotone. It is not long before this song erupts into the album's first grandiose noise passage, with Kristen screaming at the top of her lungs about how she needs to break this person before she herself is broken. The whole thing is disorienting, uncomfortable, and terrifying. At the same time, though, I can't help but admire how great it all sounds. Her vocals are incredible, the mood is completely enrapturing. The noise continues for a few minutes before all of the instrumentation drops out, save for one repeating, earth-shaking bass tone. Kristen then comes in with some of the most mind-blowing vocal harmonies I've heard all year, which is saying a lot because Titanic Rising came out this year. Seriously, the harmonies at this point in the song are breathtaking. Like, how many layers of vocals are we hearing here? It's only the second song and my jaw is already on the floor. From there we get 2 more incredible songs that continue this balance between beauty and horror. These songs are called Butcher of the World and May Failure Be Your Noose. These song titles, man. The former warps a sample of the A Clockwork Orange theme to harrowing cinematic effect, and the latter begins with some beautiful piano chords and harmonies before exploding into one of the most devastating crescendos on the album. Very few moments in music this year, for me at least, have been as bone-chilling as the repeated "everything burns down around me" refrain at the end of this song. Like, next we get the album's first straight ballad with the track "Fragrant is My Many-Flowered Crown." Kristen continues to show off her impeccable vocal versatility on this song, with moments of what sounds like overtone singing, as well as her just incredible vibrato. And while the core of this song is just an amazingly beautiful ballad with just Kristen and her piano, this is still able to fit into the creepy atmosphere of this album, what with all these layered harmonies and these distant, reverberating bass hits. Track 6, "If the Poison Won't Take You, My Dogs Will," is easily one of Caligula's darkest and best songs. Lyrically, this song references the serial killer Eileen Wuornos and introduces one of the album's main recurring ideas. This character, directly representative of Kristen or not, essentially wanting to take her own life in order to escape this abusive relationship. She says, "Make worthless your body so no man can break it." It's some seriously disturbing, dark stuff, and what makes it maybe even more chilling, at least in my opinion, is how she sounds not really sad here, but like defiant. Musically, this song is a devastating, absolutely devastating and potent ballad with some of the most compelling noise passages on the entire album serving as bookends to the song. Next is one of the harshest, most intense, and I guess most relentless songs on Caligula, the track "Day of Tears and Mourning." This song features some gothic church organ, a relentless cymbal-smashing drum pattern, and completely unintelligible scream vocals that clip and careen through this thick sea of noise. It's terrifying. It is definitely one of the most redundant songs here, but I don't really mind at all, as I just find the sound of this track to be so thoroughly compelling and unsettling. It's like a funeral march, except the funeral party is literally marching to hell. Over the course of the album, we see a sort of evolution within Kristen, going from a victim of abuse who has been scorned and feels broken to someone who has been empowered by their experiences and rising above. And sure, describing it in those terms does make it sound, pretty good, but it's really a lot more sinister than that, as Kristen does not really return to her original state as much as she transcends it and completely transforms into this terrifying beast of hatred. The song "Sorrow, Sorrow, Sorrow" is one of the quietest moments on Caligula. It's just Kristen and her piano again, except there are even fewer harmonies, and it doesn't really build too much of a climax like on Traitor or Noose. In a lot of ways, it reiterates the same ideas and themes that we've heard up until this point in the album. On my first listen, I didn't really love this song, as I found it didn't do all that much to separate itself from the more robust ballads on this album, like "Flowered Crown." However, there was one detail in the song that made me kind of look at it in a different light, and that was actually the spoken word sample that appears about halfway through. It is a recording of Lars Ulrich, the Metallica drummer, eating a sandwich and talking about all of his pent-up angst and rage. I think it's actually from the Saint Anger era. Anyway, the curious inclusion of this somewhat funny and awkward sample reads to me as Kristen being so fed up with what she sees as self-pity that she's kind of thrown this in here to make fun of herself, as a way of intentionally making light of what is an extremely serious situation. And this is something you can see victims of abuse and even people going through depression do as a sort of defense mechanism, where they're just kind of brushing it off and saying, "Oh, it's nothing," when it really is serious. I think that was done very deliberately and intentionally here, and I think it is absolutely tragic in the context of this album. I read on Genius that Kristen said she put this in the song to simulate an audience member talking during a quiet part of her set, which I think honestly does translate, and again is uniquely and profoundly depressing. Next we get to the track "Spite Alone Holds Me Aloft." By this point in Caligula, you kind of know what to expect. You're going to get these ballads that are interspersed with these huge bursts of noise, but few of them are as well formed and just like, so well constructed and paced as Spite Alone Holds Me Aloft. The crescendos are fantastic. The moment where the drums come in is just like, ugh. And again, there's this moment after the last big crescendo when we get to this kind of chill out moment where there are tons of harmonies just all repeating, and kill them all, in these like angelic tones. It's scary. It's really, really scary. Again, it doesn't do anything super out of the ordinary for the brand that this album has kind of set up over its runtime, but there's a lot to be said for just how well she is doing what she is doing each time. There isn't a single one of these songs that is not absolutely incredible, but is made even stronger when you put it in the context of this larger body of work. We then get to the album's shortest track, the very pretty and kind of unassuming 2-minute interlude titled Fucking Deathdealer, which pretty much just consists of these beautiful plucked melodies, and Kristen in a very soft voice kind of repeating these mantras and phrases to herself that we initially heard at the beginning of the album on Butcher of the World, kind of taking us back to some of the early moments on the album before making way for the album's closer, I Am the Beast. And as the closer, this song is just wow. It begins with some dramatic, sparse acoustic guitar strumming, and Kristen's aching falsetto just eerily creeps in. The song gradually and very subtly starts to build with these moments of two-part harmonies and swells of strings to accentuate certain lyrics. And in these lyrics, we see Kristen completing her transformation into this beast and summing up Caligula with heartbreaking simplicity, saying, "All I want is boundless love. All I know is violence." And God, I mean, the first like 2/3 of this song is perhaps the most elegant and beautiful piece of music on Caligula. It is just such an aching, broken ballad of a track that just hits me so hard in my heart. To finish off the song and the album, Kristen suddenly throws listeners headfirst into the most towering, insane, and completely overwhelming wall of noise on Caligula, and that is saying a lot because this has happened several times on the album before, but nowhere is it more intense than it is right here. But at the same time, in this passage, we're getting these very distinct horns blasting through the mix, and Kristen's shrieked proclamations of "Beast I am, praise me," has this climax come through as a moment of triumph. The last cymbal is hit, and the noise that carries Caligula to its close does not fade out, rather it cuts abruptly, sharply, and definitively. More than any other album released this year, Caligula hit me like a truck. On first listen, I was left absolutely slack-jawed by the raw emotional display and sonic power, but on countless repeated listens, I grew to appreciate the intricacies and thought placed into every single track here. Kristen Hayter really is an incredible musician. Her clean singing is mind-blowing, both in its range and its emotion. The vocal harmonies that she orchestrates here are often unbelievable, and her screams on this album would put countless black metal vocalists to shame. It should go without saying, this is obviously not for the faint of heart, both in the harsh sounds and the harsher themes. This is one dark record, but for those willing to take the treacherous journey that is Caligula, you will find what is, in my opinion, one of the year's most satisfying, complete, well-constructed, and thoroughly unforgettable musical experiences. I don't really have any complaints about this album. Like, any criticisms I could see myself possibly leveling against this thing just feel so small and powerless and insignificant when compared to the overall experience presented here. Caligula is really a tortured masterpiece of extreme music and emotion that is unlike anything I have ever heard. And as such, for a score, I'm honestly feeling a 10 out of 10. So yeah, that's gonna do it for all my thoughts on this new Lingua Ignota album. Still don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Caligula. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. Thank you so much for all of the support that this channel has gotten in its first year. I am very excited to be making my year-end list now. I think that's what I'm going to focus on next. I think I might be changing the way I'm going to format these reviews in the new year, but I guess we'll see. All of this is always a work in progress. But I'm glad that you guys have been enjoying some of these videos. So I do plan to keep making some more. Make some more. So yeah, thank you. I hope to see you all in the next video, and goodbye.